Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We got Joe Rogan talking about this evil looking gentleman right here. That is Dick Cheney, ladies and gentlemen. Looks like he just finished eating a person, and he has endorsed Kamala Harris, apparently. That's right. Darth Vader without the suit on has decided to endorse Kamala Harris, and for some reason, people are trying to position this as a good thing. This is terrible. And it's very interesting. You're going to hear Joe Rogan talk about it. Then you're going to hear Tucker Carlson talk about it. Both of them talking about it very honestly. Tulsi Gabbard as well, talking about it very honestly. And then I'm going to show you what the mainstream media is trying to position this whole thing as. It's very interesting to see the contrast. Let's jump into the Joe Rogan clip first, of course. Here we go.
It's pretty, I don't know if it's like an official one, but they're always posting like updates about it and what's going on. And so I think it would be really important for somebody to go around and start talking to, getting another perspective rather than what, Fox and CNN have to say about it.
What changed with you that altered your perspective about us being the good guys?
COVID.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I used to get like really upset when people would, talk about, the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan and when I was still in, and I got so pissed off I moved out of the fucking country. And I was like, I don't even want to listen to this shit anymore. But after diving in and looking at the policies that came out and kind of, it's kind of like when it's just reflecting on some of the policy decisions and stuff that didn't really make sense at the time when I was in, that now I look back and I'm like, man, what the I didn't have time to think about it then, because it was, okay, go on the next op, go on the next mission, whatever, right? But now, like, looking back through the podcast and talking to, my podcast started with all my former colleagues and in mill and agency, nobody thinks we should have been there, especially Iraq. Nobody thinks we should have been there. And I just keep going down the rabbit hole, and man, I don't diving into the military-industrial complex, all the lies that the government has been telling us, all the unreleased, classified, it's overwhelming, and it's created a 100% complete distrust in government. I mean, the Dick Cheney stuff. I mean, about Dick Cheney, Halliburton.
Yeah.
Have you looked into that
Yeah.
at all?
Well, he was the CEO of Halliburton, and then Halliburton got no bid contracts to rebuild in Iraq for billions of dollars.
I don't think people understand like how
crazy that is.
How big. I mean, it was the fucking logistics company for two wars. That's everything, Joe. They're delivering your mail, they're building your barracks, they're cooking your food, they're in charge of garbage, they're in charge of fuel, they're everything. Everything that's logistical over there is Halliburton, KBR.
Wow.
In both countries. And I mean, I think people think Afghanistan, they're like, oh man, you're probably on a tent or sleeping on the side of a mountain or something. No, man, there's fucking Burger King, KFC, Pizza Hut, Thai restaurants. I mean, that's all logistics. I mean, it's cities that we built over there, and it all was built by Halliburton.
Wow.
Who was the the CEO's vice president of the fucking country. Like, what? Are you serious?
And now he supports Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Right?
When you see the left getting excited that Dick Cheney is supporting their candidate, the world's gone haywire.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The same people that used to think Dick Cheney was the devil, now all of a sudden they're like, look, Dick Cheney.
It's like nobody actually has an opinion anymore. They're just
Look, Satan supports Kamala Harris. Guys, I mean, if Satan supports Kamala Harris, this is Darth Vader. I mean, he is one of the strongest Jedis. I mean, are you kidding me? The Sith Lord talks to him constantly. He can become Sith Lord one day. You understand who this guy is? Absolutely ridiculous. You can tell that it really messed with him a lot. As he's explaining everything, you can tell it's really messing with his head. Like, he was really disillusioned. And that's a great thing to have happen. It's very reminiscent about what happened to Tucker Carlson when he explains that he just didn't understand and he didn't see any of it. And you know, the war as well woke him up, and he was like, you know, this shouldn't be happening. And, you know, it's very interesting to see somebody be able to wake up. You know, I said it in the comment section, you know, he's one of the only CIA guys, and I know he was a contractor, but believe you me, that's not a distinction for me. He's one of these CIA guys that doesn't give me these creepy feels, you know, when he's talking about stuff. And you could tell there was a real awakening there, especially if you listen to his podcast. He did a lot of ayahuasca and things like that, and, you know, almost ended his life at one point. Like, he's gone through some stuff. So I'm glad to see that he's woken up, and so many people appreciate him because of that. But yeah, interesting, the whole Halliburton thing. Very, very interesting. I knew it was bad. I knew it was just huge conflict of interest, especially when it was happening, because I was young while it was happening. I was just like, oh, huge conflict of interest. But the way he just broke it down, how it's everything, they built cities, it's very reminiscent to kind of what's going on in Ukraine right now in regards to BlackRock and what they're doing right now. As whatever is needed to be built, apparently, you know, I haven't delved into the story all that too much, but apparently BlackRock has its hands in helping rebuild. So everything that's getting blown up, torn down, whatever, what have you, they actually are helping rebuild. Not the same conflict of interest, but just as sinister, in my opinion. Listen to this clip here. This is this is Dick Cheney giving the endorsement, and then also Donald Trump chiming in about what he thinks about this whole thing. Let's go.
Former Republican Vice President Dick Cheney will be voting for Kamala Harris in November. That, according to his daughter Liz, a former Republican congresswoman who has endorsed Vice President Harris herself. Cheney served as VP for George W. Bush from 2001 to 2009. The staunch conservative was also a longtime congressman from Wyoming and had held several leadership roles in the House Republican caucus. Cheney has previously called former President Trump, quote, a threat to our republic, end quote. In response, former President Trump posted to social media last night that the former vice president was, quote, irrelevant and the king of endless nonsensical wars, end quote.
And listen, Trump told no lies just now. That is 100% who this gentleman is. Like, Trump hit the nail on the head. He's like, he is the king of ongoing wars and benefactor, in fact. Wild. Absolutely wild. This is one thing. If I was Kamala Harris and somebody was like, you know, Dick Cheney's going to announce tomorrow that he's going to endorse you. He's going to vote for you. I'd be like, please, no, please no, please no, please tell him to say that he's going to vote for Trump. Tell him that he feels that his values align with Trump. And they're like, no, his values align with you. And she's just like, shit, God damn it. She's like, well, tell him thank you, I guess. He's like, he wants to invite you to a party. He wants to go hunting with you. I'm not going hunting with that guy. Get shot in the face. Look at that guy. Jeez. Evil. Are you kidding me right now? Let's jump over to Tucker Carlson, hear what he has to say about the whole thing. Tulsi Gabbard will chime in as well. And then I'll show you the nonsense that the mainstream media is trying to push. Let's go.
Because that's where all the money is. That's where all the money is. And if you don't believe it, maybe you haven't checked your phone today to see that Dick Cheney and his horrible daughter have a... And it was watching this that I realized, oh, that's what they actually care about. What they actually care about is the ability to continue to fight pointless wars, because that's where all the money is. That's where all the money is. And if you don't believe it, maybe you haven't checked your phone today to see that Dick Cheney and his horrible daughter have endorsed Kamala Harris. Dick Cheney. Now, why is that? What does Dick Cheney have in common with Kamala Harris? And it's really interesting, actually, because they're constantly telling us that the divides are along race and gender. And they were always telling us, Rick, Dick Cheney is this rich white guy, and Kamala Harris is this oppressed woman of color. They've got nothing in common. But actually, they have everything in common. Because they're both neocons. That's exactly right. They have everything in common. And it tells you what a lie this race and gender stuff is. That's not the divide. The divide is in your heart. And if you think it's okay to kill people in order to get rich, you're on their side. And if you don't, you're on our side, no matter what you look like. And Tulsi Gabbard proved that. And then she began this long journey, which culminated in her endorsement of Trump, and I'll let her tell the rest. But we're honored to have her tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Tulsi Gabbard. Thank you for coming.
Aloha.
Aloha. I love that you came with a lei. That's so great.
Gotta represent.
So I have to, I just feel like I brought up Cheney. You know, there are a lot of bad people in the world. I don't think Cheney's the worst person in the world in the running, but I could think of others. But I don't want that event, the Cheney endorsement, the family endorsement of Kamala Harris, of all people, to pass by without examining its significance. This feels like, if historians were honest, this is an event that they would write about 50 years from now, when the actual architecture of the world became clear to everybody. This is what's really going on. This is how it really works. But I'll stop and ask you what you think of it.
I have a very simple message for my Democrat friends, my independent friends, those who may not be sure about who they're voting for in this election. Dick Cheney has just made the choice very clear. A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for Dick Cheney, the architect of everything that has gone wrong in the Middle East for the last few decades. And so it's interesting because if you listen to the New York Times or some of the other mainstream media, they're saying, oh, you know, don't expect much from Kamala Harris in the way of policies and details and plans, and we're not going to know much about what kind of president she's going to be because she doesn't have much time. They're conveniently ignoring the fact that she's been there working in the White House the last 3.5 years alongside Joe Biden. She's been the last one in the room, according to her, as these big decisions are being made. But we look at who she says, her response to the Dick Cheney announcement today was that she was honored to have his endorsement. And we got military veterans in the house. Got a lot of you who probably served in the Middle East like I did. And so it sickened me, Tucker, to read those words today, both from Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, and Kamala Harris, because we have people who we care very much about who were killed in those wars because of Dick Cheney. Kamala Harris has told us all we need to know about what kind of commander-in-chief she would be. And I don't know about you, but I would not trust her for a moment with the lives of my brothers and sisters in uniform.
So you were a sitting Democratic member of Congress, and you know them all, obviously. Them all, from Hillary Clinton, who hates you with a special kind of ferocity. I think she's called for putting you in prison.
This is true.
I think she literally wants to put you in prison. I think she said that. So I'm happy to have you join the exclusive club that I belong to. But, like, what do they think of this? It's the Democratic Party, at least when I was growing up, was the party of, you know, hold a bake sale. The Pentagon doesn't need more bombers or whatever. And now it's just kill them all, let God sort them out because we're getting rich doing it. Are they comfortable with this? Like, what do they think of this behind closed doors?
This is again, showing kind of the realignment where you have Adam Kinzinger and Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney supporting and endorsing Kamala Harris proudly, people who have been neocons and are neocons not hesitating to say, let's go to war in any and all situations, regardless of the cost and consequence. And then you have people like Bobby Kennedy and myself and others who are standing with Donald Trump not because we agree on every single thing under the sun, but because we agree on the most important things, which is really about our ability as Americans to live and thrive in a truly free and prosperous society. And we cannot be free or prosperous unless we're at peace.
Perfectly said. It's very, and just perfect example. She's on the screen right now. It's all these very good, genuine, solid people are like, we have to back Trump. And all of these evil looking people are like, Kamala is the person in the back. So he looks like 24/7. Walks up to Kamala. I want you to be president. And she's like, thank you, sir. Kamala would be one of those in Star Wars. She'd be one of those dudes that's in the white suits, just runs around, just gets shot all the time, falls all over the place. That's what she would be. 100%. She's not a Jedi. She's not, Sith, they're evil, but she's not Sith. She's definitely not Sith. She's just one of those guys that's like, hey, where'd he go? Which way did he go? And they're just falling into each other. Oh, the laser got me. She's definitely one of those people. 100%. Let's hear what the mainstream media is trying to sell you on this whole thing. From what I can see, what Tucker, Joe, Tulsi are talking about is ongoing wars. Not a good thing, obviously. Taxpayer, death, all that. Death in exchange for money, because they're actually making massive amounts of money from all this war that's going on. Dick Cheney is a huge proponent of that kind of thing, and just straight up evil. Again, I remind you, this is what he looks like. Good Lord. So that's what we got going on one side. What's the mainstream media trying to tell us this is really all about?
President and Defense Secretary Dick Cheney is backing Kamala Harris. That marks one of her most high-ranking Republican endorsements in this campaign, probably the most iconic. Dick Cheney is an arch-conservative hawk, a GOP icon, a fixture running Republican administrations as chief of staff, and then running their war policies as defense secretary and vice president, most famously during 9/11 and the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Those were stints that made him a firebrand folk hero on the right and loathed by most prominent Washington Democrats. Indeed, this news right now tonight would have been unheard of 10 or 15 years ago. And we should remind you, Cheney is far from a never-Trumper. He endorsed Donald Trump in 2016. This is a mark amidst this extraordinary shift in American politics. It also completes the Cheney family's unusual evolution. And it did not come during the actual 4 years of Trump's presidency, his governing priorities and mistakes, whatever you think of them. It only came during the battle in the fissure over whether we are going to be a democracy or a coup-run dictatorship in this country. It came in that period after Trump lost to Joe Biden and fomented an insurrection. You probably recall how Liz Cheney went from the actual Republican leadership, working in tandem with Trump, to a critic of him, to then chairing the January 6th committee investigating his attack. Now her father joins this stance, which puts democracy above politics or any certain policies, and as a political matter, may be hugely helpful to Kamala Harris in a tight race that includes states where there are people who still really like the Bush-Cheney policies or hearken back to them as a better Republican era than Trumpism. And if that's what they hearken back to, Dick Cheney is telling them, vote for Kamala Harris tonight. Liz and Dick, we should mention, have a long record disagreeing with Kamala Harris on everything from abortion to taxes. But they're saying something here is more important tonight.
It's communism. Communism's much more important. Communism, death, and war. That's what they're looking for. Dick Cheney's like, who's the person that's going to bring me communism, death, and war? And Kamala's like, I can do that. I can do that. I wasn't even listening to what you said, but I'll do whatever. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Oh my gosh. Absolutely amazing. So this is democracy above everything, you know? Do they want this to be a democracy or a coup that's going on? And Kamala Harris is the one that's going to stop all this. Absolutely amazing. That's what they're trying. My sinuses, but also my brain. They called Dick Cheney iconic. Hey, that's not the word you use. That Hitler, he's very iconic. Hey, whoa, no. No, we don't give them that word. Hold on a second. You don't call monsters iconic. That's not what you do. But the mainstream media, this clown right here, he's trying to sell you on that whole thing. He's like, Dick Cheney, high-ranking Republican. Hey, it's a monster. Hey, relax. Trying to throw everything. High-ranking Republican, great guy. When his friends are itchy, he shoots them in the back with shotguns. I mean, this guy's iconic. What? This guy's terrible. Here, I'll play a little quick piece again.
Not shared his conservative credentials to help a Biden or a Harris, although when Liz Cheney was in her primary, he was clear about the danger of Trump.
There has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He is a coward. A real man wouldn't lie to his supporters.
This guy just looks like if the camera just panned back, there would just be a person just laying. He'd just be standing over some person, just, knife and fork in his hand. You know what I mean? Just weird Illuminati stuff. You know what I'm talking about? That's what he looks like. Does he have a heartbeat yet? It's 2024. Does he have a heartbeat? Or is it still just, it's just oozing, this plasma just oozing through his system? Machines are the only thing. God was like, no heartbeat for this one. I have to take away this one's heartbeat. And he was like, yeah, I'll put a machine in. I don't care what God has to say. Hey, tick, 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 tick. He's like, there. Damn you. Oh, Dick Cheney, ladies and gentlemen. The newest Kamala Harris endorsement. And the worst. And of course, they're trying to make it seem like the best. It's just very interesting to see Joe Rogan, Tulsi Gabbard, Tucker Carlson talk about it so honestly of who this guy actually is. Sean Ryan as well. I mean, Sean Ryan really broke down how bad what he did with Halliburton really was. And then you hear the mainstream media try to break it down. And that's what they've been doing the whole time throughout this entire facade, this whole installment of Kamala Harris. They have just been time after time making it seem just completely different than what it is, completely the opposite of what it is. Kamala Harris walks on stage and she's just like, hello. And they're like, look, you voted for her. No one voted for her. Look, she's a good person. Her record shows she's not a good person. She's a great leader. Her record shows that she's actually an authoritarian of sorts. It's crazy. Says that she smoked weed, locked people up for weed, laughs about actually smoking weed. It's just everything that you hear about her it's in actuality, it's the opposite. I've never seen a campaign like this, and I've never seen the media back someone like this. This is like 10 times what was going on with Hillary Clinton. 100 times what was going on with Joe Biden. This is absolute nonsense. Anyways, guys, I just wanted to bring you that information really quick. Like, subscribe, turn on the notifications. It helps us tremendously. And other than that, I'm out.